Alright, so I had like 8 minutes of a video, and then I decided I wanted to redo it. And then I realized that that's basically my same start point, so maybe it was silly to toss it out when I had already started. Anyway, hate it when I do that. So, my start point was yesterday. I decided that I was going to do things a little different. I was going to attempt to do the video at home while somebody else was here. And that's the case now too. However, we're way earlier in the day, and he doesn't go out of his way to venture off from the couch too often, so he's way in the other room, and hopefully he stays there. But otherwise, my door's shut, so he'd just hear me talking and probably stop to try to listen, but hopefully we're just going to assume that's not going to be a concern today. Oh, that said, hold on. That said, I just put a towel or a blanket at the bottom of the door since it's kind of high up, so it's a little less likely to carry out in the hallway. But anyway, so yesterday I was going to attempt to do the video, but it was already later in the evening, and I tried. Of course, since it was darker than I normally try to, if I do a video too late in here and it's dark, then I need the lamp, right? So that side of the house, the window over there, the neighbor can see in that. I don't like the neighbor seeing in that, especially if I'm trying to do a video, especially considering that part of my neighbors are family. So if I'm just sitting here talking to my phone, yeah, anyway, you get the idea. So I shut the curtain part of the way, and then I had my lamp and I turned it on. To use the lamp and have decent lighting, I sat down on the floor at the foot of my bed. And it would have been fine, except for Taz decided to bring his bone onto the bed, and since he wanted to be close to me, first thing he did was club me in the head with it. And then immediately afterwards, he got his foot tied in my hair. That wasn't real helpful. So it ended up being more trouble than it was worth, and I decided it was dark enough, late enough. I didn't know how much time I had. It's like, screw it, we'll just go do something else, right? And actually, what I ended up doing was watching a movie that I think I had known that it existed, but hadn't heard about it recently. I think I saw it at the library at one point, and I didn't decide to watch it, which kind of is weird enough that I didn't think to watch it at the time. So, the movie is called Till, right? And it's based on the story of Emmett Till, right? So he was the 14-year-old kid, black kid, that, was from Chicago, but went to visit cousins in Mississippi, I believe, in like 1955, and whistled at a white woman and ended up getting lynched and drugged behind a vehicle, if I'm remembering correctly. They didn't really talk about that specifically in the movie, but I remember learning about the story, I think when I was in 3rd grade, and I think I've mentioned it on here as well. But like, that story always stayed with me, especially with the idea of this woman having made a big deal about this thing that happened, and then, 2 white guys come in to, save the day and protect the poor white woman, right? There were some feelings. Of course, obviously, the story stayed with me, right? It was one that, when I saw the title of it the other day and kind of looked at it, I didn't process it enough to think, hey, I want to watch that. I think it must have been, I got this other movie called Freud's Last Session. I don't know if it was that one, or what was the other one? The Substance. No, not The Substance. That's definitely not the same movie. I have talked about that one recently. I don't know why that came up. Something in the Dirt was what the movie was called. The substance is a whole nother a whole nother thing. Anyway, so Something in the Dirt. I watched that one the other day, and I don't know if I saw the preview from that movie or from Freud's Last Session, but I watched both of those recently, and I saw the preview for this movie Till, and it like sucked me in when I was actually, when I saw the preview. It's like, oh yeah. So now I want to watch this thing that I didn't realize that I had literally just picked up and put back down. And I think the reason I put it down was more because I've been more horror focused lately. But then, Freud, because Freud and psychology. So, so there's some stuff there. So of course it's kind of shifting what I'm watching. But the whole drama thing hasn't really been my direction here lately. So I think that was the bigger reason on why I didn't pay more attention to it at the time. However, so I watched this movie last night, right? And knowing how it's going to go, essentially how it's going to go, because again, I heard that story. I was very familiar with that story, and it always stayed with me. And I think there's more to it staying with me than I even realized. And I think a big part of that was, okay, like at the end of the movie, how it has your the facts about the case or whatever. I think that was probably along the lines of why it stayed with me, is because, the end of the movie, it talks about how okay, so you see this trial. I don't know what is this the only one that I've talked about it? I think I didn't. I think this is where I've talked about the movie exclusively. I don't think I got to that in the first start. So I'm going to go with that assumption. And I don't know. Anyway, the story, right, based on the 14-year-old kid that whistled at the white woman and ended up getting lynched and I think drug behind a vehicle or something. And I think they also said they put a bullet in his head. So, like one of the big important pieces of the story was for his funeral, his mother insisted that it was open casket because the world needed to see what their hate had done to her child, right? So that was the premise. But since it was, Mississippi in 1955, of course the white dudes got off scot-free, right? And so the fact at the end of the movie was that it wasn't a real long time later, but a few years later, the two men who had done it ended up doing an interview with a magazine where they confessed to everything, and it said they got $4,000 and got to live the rest of their lives without any punishment for the crimes. But of course, with the trial, they were let off, right, for this thing that they had done, where they had drugged this kid behind the vehicle or whatever, and his body was badly mangled and it was almost unrecognizable, mostly unrecognizable, and the jury let him off, right? This just showed pictures of the body, showed talked about what all had happened as far as, she found a bullet in his head and all this stuff. And it's like, I think the biggest thing was I knew that it was going to be one of those movies that I cried through the whole time. And it did not let me down, which, of course, topic-wise, I knew that was going to be the thing anyway, right? So, you know, I think I remember hearing something a few years ago about the woman who complained that he had whistled at her, had ended up changing her name later in life because she didn't want the attention. But still, just that point that her and the two men had no consequences, right? It's like, I think that's the biggest thing that has been really sitting with me, is just that lack of accountability. And, you know, when I did my video the other day where I was talking about, you know, whether to name the bullies when in my writing, and I had that really strong sense of these people have never had any kind of accountability for how they've treated people, right? It's like, that is the same kind of energy that allows for the other situation to happen, right? So it's like, it's just the point that, you know, white dudes haven't had any consequences for their reaction, or for their actions. And I've had so many thoughts about this morning. I actually kind of woke up having this yelling at my family again. I had something else come up where I was okay. I've been getting a lot of these videos lately with of course the narcissistic abuse things. Another creator has come across my little newsfeed thing, Dr. David B. Hawkins, and one of the videos that I watched of his this morning is one of those little shorts on YouTube, and it was talking about how, okay, like a husband and wife came in for counseling, and the wife said, you know, that I don't remember all the information what it was saying about it, but she was talking about like these 3 different things that she was having issues with in the relationship, you know, and those are the kinds of things that commonly get swept under the rug as just a communication thing, but when it's actually emotional abuse, it's like, so this is going to be a muddy one today, I can tell. There have been so many things that I've been thinking about, and there's like so many different layers that come around to similar points. And I'm trying to put them together in my head to make them make sense, which is always a pain in the butt. Yeah, but like the last thing that he said about the counseling, though, the wife's complaint was being made to feel like certain things hadn't even happened, and like there was a problem with how she was remembering them, right? And I think that was kind of what spurred me on to comment on the video with my experience with my grandfather, right? So, you know, he's talking about how what's commonly just brushed off as communication things is actually emotional abuse, you know. So then I'm thinking about like the time in 2019 where I moved back home after I left my ex the last time, and, you know, was in the process of getting divorced, right? 3 weeks after I get back, with this intention that I'm getting divorced, right? That's goal. I'm here. I'm never going back. And 3 weeks later is Easter. So the family's all together, and my cousin brings her fiance. I don't know if he was a fiance at that point. I think he was, to meet the family. And my grandpa's running his mouth in the kitchen talking about how his family doesn't get divorced. Like, he has no awareness whatsoever that I'm in the middle of going through the divorce process, right? He's just talking about, like, the years of his family lineage. Nobody ever got divorced. You just didn't do it, right? But of course, when he says, my family doesn't get divorced and I'm getting divorced, I like flipped my lid. I walked into the room. I said, because I'm not part of this fucking family. And I walked out, and I think I went out to the car and was sitting there for a minute. And I was not trying to end the family time or whatever. It's just I needed away from that. And since I was in the car, everybody just took it as Easter's done. We've done what we came to do. It's handled. This was an abrupt ending. It was not pretty. But an ending no less, right? And probably partly to deny or not to avoid allowing it to go on any further. So, I mean, God knows you didn't want any more drama than that, right? So, so we come back to our house, and of course my grandparents lived next door. Well, when my grandpa lived. Anyway. So they came back over here to apologize. But what ended up happening was I was outside throwing the ball for Gidge because I didn't want to talk to anybody, right? So I'm throwing the ball for the dog, and he comes out there. And what he says is, I didn't mean it like that. I ignored him. I just kept throwing the ball. Did not look at him. Did not acknowledge that he was there. Nothing. The only thing he said was, I didn't mean it like that. And then he kind of like gave up and went in the house. And when I talked to my mom later, she said something about his apology. I said, he didn't apologize. I said, not once did anything out of that man's mouth come out like an apology. I said, he said he didn't mean it like that. I said, that's not an apology. And she said that basically that I just needed to accept it because she thought that was the closest to an apology he'd ever said in his life. And I said, that's pathetic because I'm confident it's not been because he hasn't been wrong. And, so then it's just one of those things where you just kind of don't ever talk about it anymore, right? But it's like, essentially, along that emotional abuse end of things, it's like she's minimizing how I'm feeling and the whole way, or like everything about what happened. And I'm just supposed to accept it because he's never apologized to anybody in his life. Interesting. But it's like that right there, that lack of accountability, that is the same exact thing that, you give it time, it becomes capable of something like this other thing happening, right? And the different events that went into the thing that happened or whatever. Like, okay, because I'm also the one who has been bitched at before because, because I'm the one that says something. I'm the mouthy one, right? So when I could be sitting in the living room with him and everybody else went out of the room for whatever reason, but he couldn't just let me sit there peacefully. He had to say the mean thing or find the thing that was different about me to point out, right? So he got really hooked on, okay, so I got my lip ring and my nose rings in 2023. The lip ring became the go-to as far as the thing he could always point out that was different about me. And so because he couldn't sit there quietly, and I'm sitting, I'd be sitting there in the window seat doing a puzzle, he'd just look at me and be like, you got a thing in your lip. And it's like the only purpose was to pick, right? To say something that reiterates the fact that I'm not like the rest of the family. I'm a problem, right? That's what my life has been. That's what a lot of my channel has been about. The fucking name on my channel, the family disappointment. There's a reason I came up with that, right? So as I've been getting increasingly mouthier about saying the thing and not just letting it go unnoticed, or, not just accepting it like everybody else, I got yelled at a couple times because he commented about all the black or mixed families on TV and commercials. And it's like, just because you don't want to look at them, doesn't mean it's not okay for them to exist. But then again, because I said the thing that called him out, that was unacceptable, right? Everybody bought into keeping that old man's illusion alive that he's like some kind of hero or whatever. And not, in fact, a freaking abusive asshat. Everybody, while some would admit that he was not perfect. Okay, I got this. There was one day I was talking to my aunt. I think I talked about this on here. The youngest sister. I was talking to her sometime last summer about something that was going on with my dad. And she said something about, while her dad wasn't perfect, she couldn't imagine anything that could happen where she wouldn't want some kind of relationship with him. And basically, all that did was set it up where I don't want to talk to her about anything else anymore. Because it's like a sort of roundabout way of invalidating whatever I was talking about being an issue. Invalidating that it was an issue at any level. And yeah, so like the biggest thing from then was I just stopped talking to her about stuff, was because it's like, she's not getting the point. There's no point in continuing the conversation with somebody who's basically going to revert back to behaviors where they were I'm wanting to say gaslight me, because that's kind of what she was doing, but it was kind of inadvertently, and I don't think she would have seen it as such, which is a big part of, where my family's toxicity has come in at so strongly. And, like Jerry Wise talks a lot about the narcissistic family super self, and how it's when you do or say the things that puts the family's illusion at risk, other elements step up and, kind of attempt to put you back in your place, basically. And it's like that was all that it was. So, like, once I saw that that's what it was and that's where it was going, it's like, there's no point in having this conversation, right? So it's like, anything... Okay, first off, the stuff that has come up on my YouTube channel, I do not talk about openly with my family. I will occasionally make comments about things that I have realized because I have worked it out in this space. But I'm not going to tell them about this thing that I'm doing. And I'm confident that when they find out about it after I've no longer connected to the family, they'll be pissed, right? But I mean, it doesn't change the fact that this has been my space to work through the shit that I've been going through, right? And to make sense of these things, but also understanding at this greater level how everything's much more connected than I ever even gave anything credit for. I say on here a lot, everything is connected, but at the same time, didn't really completely grasp it for myself either until I start seeing like the different layers of things. Like, okay, the videos that I saw today, there's the David B. Hawkins videos where he's talking about emotional abuse and the narcissistic stuff as well. But then a couple of the other videos that I got into were ADHD in women. You know, and one guy was talking about like these different things that, or different ways that it comes across in women, right? So he's talking about everything is going to be overthought because, you know, the mind never shuts off. And, you know, big time overthinker. I'm pretty solid on that. He was talking about a tendency to be kind of messy, but at the same time knows where everything is. And I'm looking at a mess right now, and I'm not going to show you my mess. I've shown it before. But, I mean, the bigger part of my mess now is I was in the process of packing stuff up to move it over to the storage unit. And then that kind of got brought to a screeching halt. So there's like boxes in the closet. Oh, fuck it. It looks like a hot mess, y'all. It does. And there's dust. So, sue me. So, yeah. So I started trying to pack stuff up. I actually cleared everything out of my closet and then was just like putting little odds and ends, minus, of course, the clothes. I was going through all this stuff, trying to get rid of a bunch of stuff that's been sort of, you know, the space for it to land until I sort through it. But then there's also the clothes that I did laundry, but then I have, okay, so you can't see, but down here there are like a couple clothing things that are back there, so that is part of what happened here. I washed my sheets and then switched out the ones that I've been using. So that's my turquoise wad. That needs to go to the drawer in the other room. It just hasn't. I get it. You know, in the box in front of where my sheets were, that's the winter stuff that I just pulled out of my storage unit so I could go through. So, you know, so I have my leg warmers, my snow boots, my gloves, and hats and scarves and things, right? So it's just, I got it here, but I haven't gone through it to put it up, but I haven't gotten anything else put up further anyway. So part of the clothes, I'm slow on the leggings because, you know, they're the last thing I wash. They get hung up. There's like 30 pairs that are hung up at a time. I have an insane amount of leggings, not even gonna lie. I actually have 4 drawers that have leggings in them, but one drawer is getting ready to be emptied out because those are like the capri ones, so I don't need those because we're going into winter, right? So that will be replaced with the fleecy ones that are currently in the little clothing tote thing behind the dresser. So it's like, you know, just some of the stuff that he was talking about, it's like, oh man, this is all me. You know, but then thinking about, oh, fuck, okay. Let me just go back to my freaking walls, right? So this wall, you can't see it. It's actually supposed to be a tree. There's a trunk right here that goes all the way down to the floor. But I decided to make it a fallish tree. It's turning, right? So because fall's like one of my favorite seasons, so I decided to throw the other colors in. However, since I've been seeing how the leaves, you know, like the different ways the leaves change, I would definitely approach that differently now. However, just at the time, it worked. But, it's a dust rag. Don't, whatever. If you judge me, fuck it. I don't care. Okay, so let's go back to this wall. No, not that wall. Okay, when I was getting ready to paint my room, right? So the reason for this chaos was because on this wall I had my DVD rack, which is now over behind the closet door. When I decided to have it moved, I realized that when my dad was hanging it up, the stud finder wasn't working, and he ended up just drilling 16 holes about an inch apart straight down the wall because he was trying to find the damn stud so he could drill the thing into it. It was a pain in the ass. I remembered it once we took it down. It's like, oh yeah. But I didn't really want the rack hanging over my bed, right? Well, here's my dog. But I didn't want it hanging right here over my bed, even though that was the only place we had for it when I first, put it in here. But since they had all the holes in the wall, okay, that color right there at the very top of that is what color my room was. So that indigo blue color. I thought we had more of the paint, but then I couldn't find it. But since I thought, and I know we had thrown out some old paint just because, what do you do with old paint? Now I have things that I would do with old paint. But at the time, I did not, right? So I don't know if that color got thrown out or not, but I couldn't find it. So what I did have was all these little quart containers from Gracie's Rainbow Wall, right? So when they were at the house before the last one they were at, the first house they were in Indiana, Gracie had her own room, and which she's always had her own room, but the room she had at that house, they bought the house off of my mom's cousin, and so it was lived in, right? So they wanted to personalize it to them. So Gracie wanted a rainbow wall. So they asked me if I would paint a rainbow wall. So I did, right? And it was nothing complicated. It was just straight lines, in different sections, but they were like, there was the Roy G. Biv of colors, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple. But then there's also pink, aqua. I think those were the additionals. I don't remember how many colors it was altogether. I could count them, but I'm not going to. Anyway, since I had a bunch of small partials and not anything to paint the room one color, it's like, okay, what can I do with this? Well, I had fun. So the tree was mainly just because I had these two canvases over here for a while and I didn't know what to do with them. So I painted a tree, and it was just very, very basic. It was looking at the tree and, trying to figure out what needs to be there first. So, right, branches, right? So I put the trunk, I'll put the branches, and then I put the leaves. But I ended up really liking how it turned out, and it was nothing fancy by any means. I just, because of course, once you put the branches up there, you still paint over them because, so it's kind of like, were they even really there? I needed them to be there. My head needed to know that there were branches in there before I put the leaves on them. Now, that said, there would be spots to see light and other things through there. But this is my wall we're talking about here, right? So we're not trying 3. Okay, so yeah. Anyway, so yeah, the tree was just because there was this thing that I had done that I liked, and I was gonna try it because I had no idea what I was doing at first. I just started throwing some colors on there, and then just started moving it everywhere, and it's like, I don't like this. I don't like this at all. And it's like, well, what can I do? I can put a tree. So I put a tree. But I like how the rest of this wall turned out. Oops. Yeah. I like that. I actually like it a lot, right? When I started, it didn't have all the little splatters and whatnot. But I like the splatters. That was the biggest thing, was it didn't feel complete either. So when I knew I was painting this wall and this wall, I decided to do kind of like a little accent thing, right? So it's going to be my pretty thing. But then, that was also the wall that my desk went on. So my hutch was over here for my desk because it's huge. And so, like, when I got that moved after I had this painted, it's like, now I want to paint the rest of it. I kind of enjoyed doing that, right? So, I am going to at least shut my underwear drawer. That's not exclusively underwear. It's got like tank tops and stuff in it too. But anyway, whatever. You don't need to know all the things, but whatever. Here. Okay, so then I had this section, right? And it got kind of chaotic because this was that was the quick deciding, hey, I'm going to continue this a little further. I wasn't going to paint this last wall at first. Hey, I talked about the thing. I have a thing in my window that has rainbows, or makes rainbows when the sun shines through it. I talked about it in the first little clip, and then I lost it, so wait like that spot. Anyway, I had the birds on, or the big-ass bird cage on the other wall, so I wasn't going to paint it at first. Fuck it. Right, so this chaos thing. Right? Okay, kindly ignore my dust rag and all that crap. But the wall is the point, right? The wall. Ignore anything that wasn't the wall, okay? So, where's my rainbow? There's my rainbow. So yeah, so I did a wall and a half. And then I liked it, and it's like, I want to continue this. So I continued it on, but I also didn't have, well, I mean, I still had some of the pink, but I used the pink up pretty quick. This is actually a different shade of pink because I went and found another clearance pink. So that's why, like, these walls are like so much darker and more blue focused. At one point there was going to be a kind of a sunset kind of a thing, or sunrise, whatever, but then it was like I was overcomplicating it in my head, so I stopped trying to do that, right? But then I got really hung up on this. I liked doing the thing, right? So I continued it. Now, the biggest thing was when I decided to do the last 2.5 walls, I was in a hurry to get it done. And I didn't stop and skate beforehand. I just like went, I was like, fuck it, we're going to paint. We're going to get this done as quickly as possible, which is why it looks so much more chaotic, right? Now, again, whoops, I'm going to fall on my ass. I like how this turned out. It's not all chaotic, and I mean, obviously it kind of is, but it's not as much as this, right? So like that's a whole different, yeah, or chaotic like this. This especially, and I put pictures over that first because it's like, oh, that's too much. But the biggest thing was I was in a good space for the other wall, right? Because I knew I wanted to do it, and I was going to, you know, I put more thought, more energy into toning myself down, right? I skated beforehand, I think, or at least had enough other stuff where I got the chaotic energy out of my system before I put the stuff on the walls. Or not the picture. Before I put the other stuff on the walls. The paint. But then when I decided I just wanted to continue it, I wasn't thinking I just want to get it. That was what I think. I was thinking I wanted to get it done, and I wasn't trying to. I was just trying to move stuff and get it done quicker, so you know I could get everything back to normal. Plus, I did have birds in here, so the windows were open, the door was open. You know, so it's like I think I might have taken them out for a little bit of it too. But it's like I didn't want to complicate anything for them or for any of the project in and of itself. But then it's like it came out so chaotic, right? And it's like, Why is it all this chaos? And I was laying here one night after I switched my my bed and my bedroom and my office around again, because this was my original bedroom when I was growing up, and then it was where I moved back into when I got back from, or in the process of getting divorced. And then there was a time I switched the rooms thinking that this would be better to have as the office because the lighting's better and birds go in the office. because they do. Because they get more daylight, because they are less likely to freak me out in the middle of the night. Well, when they freak out. They don't do it very often, but they have where they just like something startles them and then they just go nuts, right? It's easier if we're not all in the same space, right? Because then the dogs go crazy too. Or the dust, right? The dust is the worst. That's the biggest part, especially right now. They're molting, so it's a hot mess. Every time they shake, feathers go everywhere, dust goes everywhere. It's like, so they need to spend more time in the tub. That's kind of complicated, but I do put them in the tub, not as often as I should, but maybe I'll do that more. Anyway, birds don't go in the bedroom anymore. They did for a long time, but it also made sense that they would be in the space where I'm up and awake and can interact with them during the day, right? So that's a big part of it. But anyway, when I got the bedroom and the office switched back around after I had everything painted, I was laying in here one night just looking at this chaos wall. Chaos. And I realized that all that was just in my system, right? That chaotic energy. It's like, it felt more peaceful being able to look at it and see it not in my system, because that is what my system always feels like, right? Now, whether that's ADHD, whether that's like, I also saw the videos talking about complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which is where it's like, for like little kids who are trying to adjust to very chaotic dynamics and to, where you become disengaged from your body because it's always that there's little things constantly going, keeping you in a sort of high alert stress state, right? So it's like, oh yeah, so that's definitely one of those things that's like related to that, right? So, whatever else you want to call it, right? The fact that I'm also empathic and pick up on stuff that's not mine, right? And so wherever the chaos comes from is kind of irrelevant. The point was, once I saw it on the walls, I realized that was in my system. And it is important for me to get it out of my system, right? But if you don't know that that's what you're carrying around until you see it outside of your system, then it's like, oh, I feel at peace knowing that it's now on the wall and not just in me, right? Which is where a lot of my skating and running and all those kinds of things, the artsy stuff, where that comes in at is it gets the chaos out of my system, right? And when I was starting this whole healing thing, like I started skating on my own in 2023, which, they're doing dumb things. Anyway, again, we're not keeping those forever because they fucking suck. Anyway, what was I saying? Get distracted by the bad bangs. Cool. Okay. So there were lots of things that happened in 2023. I turned 40, and there again, one of my knowings when I was a senior in high school was that I would be 40 before things started making sense, right? And there again, right on time. So I had roller derby which I actually retired in 2023. But before I retired, I started skating by myself, and I realized that I enjoyed skating by myself more than I did skating with other people. But then there was also that level of 2023 where I got the lip ring and the nose ring, or nose rings, because there's 2 holes there. I set the intention that I would never again work in a job that asked me to be anything less than 100% who I am. So the first thing that had to go was the thing that was not in alignment with that, right? So the job that I was doing that was asking me to be slightly less of myself, like they didn't care if I had the colorful hair. They didn't care what I did makeup wise. Jewelry was out. Studs were okay, but don't have anything dangly, which, I mean, today we're good. But still, I mean, you're going to be working with car parts. You don't want anything getting snagged when it's going into a machine or whatever, right? So, so there were limits, right? But then the biggest thing was the uniform, right? So you have to wear the things that's not going to damage the car parts. So everybody wears the same thing. Nobody has anything that, could potentially snag or cut something, like the metal, scratch it, whatever. And this is, of course, I was in the welding department, which was the very first, so there was a little more flexibility there. If something got dinged up in that process, it was less likely to be a huge problem because, they were still going to be welded together and then go to the next space of something else being welded together before it gets handed off to, like, paint or whatever the fuck else was next and all that crap, right? So it was like the first step. It wasn't that big of a deal, but at the same time, you gotta have everybody conform. There again, conforming. So it became the thing that it's like you just set this intention that you were never again going to work in a job that asked you to be less than who you're supposed to be, and yet here you are dialing yourself back because you have to for this kind of thing, right? So it's like that went. It's like I've always known that writing is a huge part of what I'm supposed to be doing, so I was trying to focus more on the writing. However, there was still a lot of stuff where that was complicated for me to get the writing part done. And there again, if you want to add this to the to that space of the complex PTSD thing or ADHD or whatever, because it's all connected, procrastination is one of those things, right? So, like the procrastination, the one video she was talking about dimming, she said the dream dimmer, where you basically are trying to talk yourself out of thinking too or dreaming too big because it hurts, right? Because something comes up, there's somewhere that has worked against you in the past, and it has taught you that it's not safe to dream big. I've talked about that a lot on here, but especially with my family, right? Again, there's my bear. Just like all the things blocking that. But like once I saw like the paint on the walls, it's like, okay, now I can see it outside of my system. Now I can process it, right? So this isn't just me constantly staring at the walls. And I mean, sometimes it is. Sometimes I just sit there and look for things in the splatters or whatever. I mean, that little pink blob kind of looks like a thumbs down. Now that I'm thinking about it. It doesn't so much if you're actually looking at it, but just how, how I saw it there. There's a spot over here that reminds me of like, was it, what's it called? The musical thing that Disney did a long, long time ago. The fuck? Fantasia. Okay. Those blips up there, that yellow skinny one, kind of reminds me of a flamingo in the wrong color, but also kind of reminds me of an umbrella that has been damaged. So it's stupid shit. It doesn't necessarily mean anything, like the stuff that I see, but like that might lead me to thinking about something else, and then my mind just kind of wanders, and then it's like, oh, where are we going next? So like the whole point of the channel has been me talking things out of my system, because otherwise there's too much to unravel to be writing it down. If I'm trying to write it without processing it out my mouth first, it feels a lot heavier. It feels like there's more that it's like I'm slowing myself down on getting it out of my system, right? So typing works, sure, but still there's occasionally those blocks with there's too much in here for me to organize my thoughts enough to put it on paper. Which there again is why this has been so useful, and not, this of course being the non-chaotic side. But it's like I have to speak it out of my system, then I understand it differently, and then I gain some clarity, and then I find a little more direction for the stuff that I'm writing, right? And that said, this is 51 minutes, 51:11 as I said that actually, and I'm getting kind of scrambly on this stuff, but I know there's one other thing that I wanted to talk about a little bit, so I'm going to share that little blip because I can. So I was watching a Kino tarot reading. Okay, there's been a couple. I watched one the other day, and she said it was one of those your person when they're coming in kind of a thing. The first thing that really stood out on that one, I mean there was other stuff, but the one that really got my attention the most as far as when is she said there's something about a big some kind of furniture purchase. And my mom was in the process of buying a couch, right? She's been like on this quest to find the perfect one, because one of the ones in that room is going to get sold or pitched, depending on which one we decide is not staying, because the one that would get pitched is, it sits better, but it's gross for nursing home household reasons. Yeah. And also unhousebroken dog reason, because since she spends the time in there where it smells like that all the time, she goes anywhere. The rest of them are all housebroken. The rescue is not so much, or the newest rescue is not so much. And she's scared of her own ass, so there's that. But anyway, that one that they prefer to sit on, or the one that's not real comfy, and it feels like it's got a spring that's kind of jacked up, but it's cleaner. But anyway, so Kino was talking about that some kind of, after some kind of furniture purchase, the furniture has officially been purchased. It just will probably arrive sometime around Thanksgiving. But that was kind of a weird synchronicity that she pointed out, right? So she points that out in the one that I watched, and then I watched one yesterday, and she said it was more of a general, just like, you'll know whatever this manifestation is, but whatever big manifestation that you've been working for, that trying to call in, she said there's going to be something where it's like, especially like the synchronicities get more dramatic, if you want to call it that way. I don't know. More noticeably in your face kind of a thing, all the same. So yesterday was the coldest day of, well, I don't know, today might have a beat. It was like the coldest of the year so far, the first of which, right? And also it snowed. Those are my little dudes that shine the rainbows. But yeah, so snow, right? And cold, right? And I pulled these two cards, and that sucks because I unmarked my page. 2 cards. So this is a deck that I hadn't used in a hadn't looked at in a long time. It's this Oracle of the Fairies, and the cards. You know, it was like it looked at me. It stood out to me like it had a message for me, right? So I'm shuffling, and these 2 come out. Wait for Winter and Manifestation, and of course, you know, they're directly connected, because I'm gonna read the Wait for Winter one, even though now I gotta find the page before I had it marked. Then I decided I didn't want to start that quick into the weird stuff when I had other stuff that I want to talk about. So this, first off, purple. We're all purpley today. Oh, and the leggings, you know, Slipknot, and yeah, fun leggings. But also, this is like one of my favorite pairs because I like the pink and the purple and the black. The shirt under is the one about they didn't burn witches, they burned women, right? So that was, I mean, but it's fucking cold, so. And the makeup, just because, we got to coordinate. Anyway, so this card that I pulled, or that kind of jumped out at me, rather, says, Wait for Winter. During the colder months, the Fairy Queen of Winter will help you manifest your most heartfelt wishes as long as your intentions are for the highest good of all. Now, the rest of it says, wishes or spiritual seeds made in your heart will come to fruition during the winter months, emerging like winter berries, ripe and full of promise. The Fairy Queen of Winter, with snowflakes on her wings, comes to remind you to keep your faith and remember that all wishes, like seeds, grow in darkness until they're ready to burst forth into the light. Are you ready to receive your wishes? Part of the wishing process is to prepare yourself for their manifestation. This could involve removing any psychic ties or spiritual obstacles that have been holding you back from the full realization of birthing your dreams into this earthly realm. Psychic ties, this is kind of like or spiritual obstacles, that's like my family. Right? So like the big, anyway, wherever you live in the world, you'll know that the Fairy Queen of Winter is nearby when the weather turns cooler or you see snowdrops pushing up through the snow. This is a sign that your wishes, too, are soon to bloom. Remember that our wishes don't always manifest in the way we've envisaged. They will come to be in whichever way is perfect for all concerned and for the highest good of all. Be especially receptive to any ideas or inspiration that will float into your mind during the magical time of winter. Okay, so obviously it talks about manifestation, too. That was the other card that came out, right? So it's like, kind of just to compound the message. So this one, I'm not going to read the card, or I'll read all of the card, but I'll read what's actually on the card itself. It says, be very honest and clear about what you wish to manifest in your life. Now write it down on paper. Manifestation, step 1. Which that's kind of the point of like my journals too. It's organizing those thoughts further and getting them out of my system and onto the paper. But also, I pointed it out in the first one, but rainbow, to go along with my little rainbow that was in my hair earlier from the thing that's over here. Yeah, I'm not flipping the camera again. At least not right now. But yeah, just like things that seem like they're kind of stacking up. I've talked a lot about how I feel like when things start coming together, they're going to come together pretty quick. Like once things start moving, they'll move quick, right? And God, that was actually one of the things this morning. So as the last thing, I mean, it wasn't the last thing. I watched Scream after I watched Till, but Till stayed with me, obviously. And that accountability piece, I think, was the biggest piece, you know. So, like, the 2 people that killed this kid, like, brutally killed this kid, get off scot-free, right? Not only that, you know, they confess to what they did for a magazine for $4,000 and still get to live their entire lives without any consequences, right? So it's like that point of the accountability thing. So this morning, when I'm, that's the feeling that I left with last night before I went to bed that was lingering there, right? This morning, of course, we're getting ready for the holidays. And I've said the last couple of years, I don't really like the holidays, right? It's like, basically, like on the shopping end. Okay, so if my mom gets me something, it's either she knows me so well and she picked out this thing and she's patting herself on the back because she got me something she knew that I would like it, and then I did, right? Or in like the other case, and you don't like it, or you would rather have the money, like, okay, there was this vibration plate thing that she had gotten because she thought it would be fun to try. That's one thing. She got it for me because she wanted to try it. But I'm the one that spends any time exercising, so I would be more inclined to use it, right? In theory. But what I told her is it's one of those things where it's like, it's better in theory than in practice. I said, in theory, yes, this is going to be a thing that, you can exercise in the house in the cold months and it's great. In practice, it becomes another thing that just more junk is set on and it's just in the way. So I said I would rather have the money out of it because I needed to take Ziva to the vet last year, right? Or this past year. And so she gave me the money out of it, but she decided she was going to keep it because she thought it would be fun. Okay, fine. You could have just got it for yourself. That would have been much better. She got it. They both used it like once. I think she used it a second time. But the biggest thing is she always calls me into the room because she's trying to want me to get excited about it and want to use it. And, it's kind of like the equivalent of a shake weight that you stand on. Just, okay, cool. We're standing here and we're jiggling. Cool. And I told her, okay, that's her approach, is that she doesn't do what she's supposed to do on it. Because if you read the instructions and actually do what it says to do, you're tensing things, you're squatting, you're, working the muscles, and then also there's this other thing that's happening to further work the muscles. That's not her method. Right? You don't break everything as easily if you're spending any kind of time actively trying to discourage things from breaking so easily. Right? So she was going to physical therapy for her back and complaining about the exercises that she was doing because they made her back hurt so much. It's like, because she's making you do things to strengthen the muscles and everything around, what you damaged, so to help you heal. I said, you don't do that much exercise when you're not broken. That's why it hurts so bad, right? So, there again, that's also part of that. When I started skating, I wandered off from 2023. There's me wandering back. When I started skating, and I started, it was basically giving myself space to daydream through things, right? So like the twin flame thing had come up, turned the love and career paths over to the universe to take the lead on, discover who my counterpart is in this twin flame connection. And, I was just giving myself space to imagine other existences, other timelines, kind of a things. And the more I started being in my body and doing stuff, getting my body out of the way, my phone is at 15%, so that means I need to hurry up. The more I started getting that kind of stuff out of my system and letting my mind wander and seeing better for myself, because that was the biggest thing. It's like, as long as all that chaos was in my system, I was never able to imagine better things for myself. So, which there again is a big part of the whole point with like the whole system that we're a part of currently, right? So you have to work like 40 hours minimum a week, but they could suck the life out of you at 80 and that would be perfectly okay to them, right? The system wants you busy because if you're busy, you don't have time to think. You don't have time to clear the chaos out and make sense of things you would rather see, right? So I don't want to live an existence where I have to work every little bit of every single day to function. I cannot do that, right? I have had to, right? So this space living with my parents, and I know this is not ideal. It's not ideal anywhere across the board. However, I've talked about this on here before too. I feel like since I did things their way when I was young enough and, still covered by the insurance and all the things, I tried things their way. It did not work for me. And in fact, it was very much showing me everything that didn't work, right? But that was kind of the point, because being in this space where I've had to live here after my divorce, and yeah, it's nice on the end of minimal things that I have to worry about, but by no means is it without any headaches, because this is where I've had to heal. This is where I got a lot of my damage that I took on. This is where I've had to process through that and to really understand what it is, where it's come from, and try to process it out of my system. That is why the system wants us as busy all the time as it can possibly keep us, in order just to survive, so we don't have the opportunity and the ability or the capacity to dream better, to want better, to no longer be in agreement to the system that says you have to work every single fucking day of your damn life to not even be able to exist, to make ends meet. You have to do this thing where fucking government's taking, half your money anyway, and you're just supposed to be okay with that, and then with the system that's in place, what are they doing with that money? They're not doing it for good, right? They're not using it for good, using it for God knows what, right, at this point, but with this toxic administration. But that's the point, because if we see it as a problem and start speaking out against it, they're less able to continue doing the things that they've always been doing, right? So if we start holding accountable the people that need to be held accountable for things that they have done, and, of course, go back to this whole point of nothing in the history of this country that has happened has really been, has been a good thing, right? So, they show up to this land where there's already people here, and they suddenly claim that they discovered it just to kill off a huge amount of the people that were already here, to take what they had because they wanted their land, right? And because they see them as less than. Also, and the whole religious aspect of it that complicates the fuck out of things and makes it okay for toxic men who don't want to be held accountable to rape women and children. So let's add that little level in there as well. Nothing that started in the foundation of this space, whether you just want to look at the nation or whether you want to look beyond that, because I'm sure we can go further than that. We're just gonna, for simplicity's sake, keep it at the nation level, because they came in, killed people off, and used people they stole from other lands to force some of the development and whatnot that were able to happen, so they're again stealing people from their homes and families and forcing them to work and not get paid anything, still getting beaten and abused otherwise. Nothing in the history of this nation has been okay, right? So in order to rebuild something better that does work, you have to be aware of how miserably wrong things went because of the people that did not want to ever be held accountable, right? So like for my grandfathers of the world who would never apologize, not because they didn't do anything wrong, just because their ego, their pride, kept them from having the capacity to say they'd fucked up and they were sorry, right? So then you have the same fucking energy that makes it okay for people to do these other horrible things and laugh about it and get paid and live freely in spite of it, right? Doesn't give a rip about any of the people that have been harmed in the process or harmed because of anything that's been done along the way, right? If you turn your head and ignore it because you want to buy into the illusion is fucking people over. Actively. Every single fucking day. Alright, so the bonus of having big mouth dogs is they do alert when, clumsy people start coming down the hallway. So I'm going to wrap it up because I think I was at the end of that thought anyway. Yep. And now that I'm standing, I really gotta pee. So, as always, I appreciate you. Until the next time. See ya.